Oh boy. Alright, I actually have to tell you something. I gagged halfway through reading this story, but not as much as another story I read on my previous creepy channel. The story contains very disturbing themes. It may cause nausea, possibly dizziness, loss of appetite, definitely, and maybe mental disorder. If you are prone to any of these, this is not child friendly whatsoever. Leave now. I warned you. I'm not going to say it again. Seriously, I'm not going to read this twice. If you can't handle it, just get out of here. Oh, and one of the themes is cannibalism. Good luck sleeping with that thought in your heads. But for those of you who like creepy stories, here we go. Don't worry about who I am. If you really want to know about me, my name is Sam. Just know that I'm risking a lot by posting this. There's something that the world needs to know about, and I'm going to discuss something big. Just, if you had a childhood, regardless of when you were born, you should remember a show called The Magic School Bus. It was a children's show in the 90s, where a crazy science teacher would take students on weekly adventures into places such as space or through the human digestive system. Great themes. It was rather harmless and an educational show, which is the reason why it has been prominently, to children since its daily premiere. What most people don't know, what they don't know about the show was it was meant to fit in the line of horror stories for kids in a show that was never made, called Horror is Alive. And as long as no one hears about this, I want to give you a detail on what this is. The show, much like Goosebumps, was about harmless horror stories, with three being shown in one episode. Despite this, the first episode underwent a complete overhaul during its production. What was to be the opening short was extended to a full episode length after the writer and director went through a long, hard experience with illegal substances, which I will not say here, which inspired the middle and end of the short, which by no coincidence is where the short takes such a fucked up turn. Everyone else, or at least mostly everybody else, were severely scarred due to the experiences making it. Most people quit after even reading the script, but others were in desperate need of a job, whether it be like they were animators or simply mere executives. A whole first season was written, but completely abandoned after only one screening, with the final blow being that the scripts were destroyed in what was once PBS Studios HQ, after an arsonist who is now believed to be the writer of the episodes, and again, director of this story that I'm going to explain to you, obliterated the building. The few who read the scripts claimed to say they were either too gory to air or too unnerving for children to enjoy watching. These people wish to remain anonymous and even remain scarred to this day. The first episode wasn't even ready to air before the concept spiraled horrifically out of control and terrified test audiences. Originally planned by PBS, it was designed by Melnitsa Animation Studio in Russia, and thus the original pilot episode was partially animated in Russia before the first screening. In the original episode, the doubting school children were brought onto a school bus. It originally didn't have eyes, that transformed into a spacecraft and brought them into space, where strange things began happening. That was the only description the people attending the screening had for me, so they had no real expectations for it. But after the screening, PBS took the original idea back to the storyboards, fired everyone behind the pilot's production, and remade it with well-known employees into, obviously, the Magic School Bus. Now, this episode was sent to me in a cardboard box by one of my online friends, who simply gave me his first name, Sergey. See how this connects back to my first creepypasta? Sergey was one of the employees during the late 80s and into the latter half of the 90s. His job was merely just checking to make sure the VHS copies of the animations weren't distorted or any lesser quality than a first-generation tape. He never told me this until I expressed interest in his old job, which triggered him to spill everything. He's much older than me, of 43 years old. The method that he used to obtain the episode was simply sneaking into the animation studio, which is merely a shoe-making factory now, and breaking through the safe in what was then where the animation was processed, which was untouched. There, most of the old animations designed by the studio were there. The episode was hard to find, but due to him having seen the original copy when it was sent to him, he could identify it. As such, the episode starts normally. The recut includes the original PBS episode 1, but the music is different, with an infinitely descending shepherd's tone replacing the happy intro. The title screen is merely black with the words Arhi Mori I can't read anagrams like that, over what must be English subtitles that translate to The Sad Bus. After some research, I found that it actually said, I cannot breathe, which makes a little bit of sense considering it takes place in outer space. The version I obtained was a recut. Despite the fact that it was the original tape apparently after the horrific reaction, the writer for Horror is Alive, and the director of this specific episode, in a pout, took the tape and attempted to edit out everything deemed unsavory by the test audience, but quit after only 3 scenes and collapsed, possibly from anxiety. I'm guessing that the recut didn't include the bus's eyes, but I'm not sure whether it's a layering mistake or something much more sinister due to the fact that 2 of the student characters, Carlos and Dorothy Ann, have no eyes. I mean, they're there, but their eyes are missing. And no one mentions it. The bus also looks more sinister because the front lights are normal on first glance, though still eye-like, almost like humans' eyes while literally frozen, and the grill of the bus just looks sad, like it's in a constant frown. The voice work is different, with a sense of sorrow and blatant discomfort in the American actors' voices. In the PBS edition, Arnold's cousin Janet thinks that Mrs. Frizzle is boring, so Arnold has the teacher take them into space. In this episode, going into space is where things become very messed up. And oh god, do they get messed up. Nothing from the original episode is here. Instead, the bus transforms, in quotes, into a spaceship, kind of like the one you see in 2001, A Space Odyssey. And in case you're wondering, no, this isn't going to be a HAL from 2001, A Space Odyssey thing. It's not even going to go there. Oh god, it's going to get much worse. There's no transition. It just becomes this. The walls are all white, and there seem to be infinite corridors with steep drops. From the outside, it looked like a Soviet space rocket, which still makes sense due to this being animated in Russia, but larger. Arnold comments that this wasn't what he expected and wants to go back home. Janet and Carlos also seem confused equally, but Janet is smiling. Mrs. Frizzle says that there is an override lock in the ship, and nobody can leave until it has reached its destination. We are hurtling towards the sun, Mrs. Frizzle tells everyone she can turn off the airlock and suffocate everyone, only jokingly, before saying she will put in the manual override, but it will take 6 months to reach the Earth again. After this, the screen begins distorting as the picture goes out of focus in a similar fashion to how the Max Headroom hijacking went into transmission during an episode of Doctor Who. This actually happened. An out-of-place slideshow then played over what sounded like an acoustic version of the Star Wars theme. The only pictures that were shown are that of planets, with each picture of some subliminally hidden disturbing human elements across the planet being shown. Basically, imagine the planet Jupiter having angry-looking human eyes melded right into the center of it, realistically, but not something too out of the ordinary for a skilled Photoshop user to have created. Oh god, I just put that image in my head. Oh, I can't get it out. Help! Someone help me. Oh god, the story is holding my brain up against the wall against its will. Oh god, please someone help me. My address is 123 help. Okay. Now, she suggests that everyone go into stasis sleep when a cancerous sore has developed on Miss Frizzle's face that nobody mentions. However, Miss Frizzle mentions that there are only 9 stasis beds and there are 11 people, including herself. Wouldn't that make 12? I don't know. She told them that she'll be fine staying up for 6 months, half a year, but one of the students will have to stay up as well. What? Ralphie suggests that they draw straws. They do so, and Arnold is determined to be the one who has to stay up. Now, up to this point, the episode was baffling, and so is the story, but this is where the show descends into hellish realms, and I'm speaking to the audience, not from the story, that I can't fucking make up, even if I tried. Okay? Okay, I'm serious. I warned you once, I'm not gonna warn you again. I'm not gonna stop reading now. After everyone goes into stasis sleep, Miss Frizzle tells Arnold that there were originally 30 students in the class, but 20 died. Yeah, 20 of them died. She tells Arnold that she's going to the upper airlock where there's a separate bed, and she only told the students that there were less beds because she didn't want them to face the idea that one person would be alone for 6 months. In addition to this, the time frame for returning home was actually 2 years instead of 6 months. She leaves and locks the door behind her from the outside. After the scene, the same distortion affection occurs as a long string of text appears saying, "But what about Janet?" several times. You could tell the time was passing by, because Arnold only became more dirty as time passed. The 9 beds line the walls, and there are porthole windows along with a control panel that is deactivated. The food that was left for him sits in one corner of the room, and he tries to ration it, but it only lasts him 30 days. That's right, 1 month. He also has no means of a bathroom, so he urinates and defecates on the floor. He literally has no choice. After about 2 minutes, 2 months have already passed, and Arnold is looking noticeably nervous and disheveled, yet hopeful. He's extremely hungry, more so than he's ever been. Ralphie's catchphrase, "I think I'm gonna be sick," begins to play repeatedly over the music track. I think it was meant to reflect Arnold's mind unhinging itself. But then Miss Frizzle begins to talk. "You're hungry, aren't you?" Arnold now realizes the predicament he faces. He won't survive 2 years in this environment, and if he tries to kill himself by smashing a porthole window, he'll kill the other students. "You didn't leave me enough food!" Arnold screams as his voice begins to crack. Several quick cuts of the spaceship from 2001: A Space Odyssey plays, about as rapidly as the human eye can blink. The voice begins to grow darker and more tinged and deeper. "Oh, but Arnold, I did." Ooh, I just gave myself the chills. The animation does a long, slow pan across the room with what looks like a stylization of a wide-angle lens pointing out the beds. Then the voice changes. "I am your extrasensory nervous system. This is no hallucination, Arnold. I am you." The weirdest and most convincing thing about the animation of the original episode is that Arnold looks very similar to Miss Frizzle. One would think they were related of some kind. In some ways, they both have pale skin, orange hair, and represent nerds. Even their mannerisms, aside from Miss Frizzle's greater achieved sense of confidence, are similar. The voice began to whisper, "Eat them." Miss Frizzle slowly melds into the background as Arnold's body parts slowly begin to shimmer and shake. And shake and shimmer some more and shake and shimmer and shake in fear. While seemingly grow subtly added scars. Arnold had attempted to analyze the space chart over the defunct control panel for some time, but only now, realizing he was intentionally trapped here, did it make sense. The path wasn't leading to Earth, it was heading for a malformed black hole that has strangely appeared to the left of the moon. Okay, pause the story. I have melanoheliophobia. That's the fear of black holes, so I'm just thankful that I'm not in this fucking predicament. Yeah, I know it's a cartoon, and like, oh, what if this happened? Yeah. But seriously, just think about it. Think about the expression on my face right now as I'm fucking reading this. Yep, there you go. Okay, through whatever means, the room was also becoming increasingly hot. So much so, Arnold had to take off all but his underwear. Thank God that he didn't take those off, or else I'd have to stop. The unclean environment was forcing him to develop more scars and sores as he slept on his side in a mat before ritualistically taking Carlos from the bed so he can sleep there at night. Why not just say reoccurringly? That was when he made the horrible realization none of them were breathing. Miss Frizzle hadn't put them into stasis. She euthanized them. It was only after he made this realization that a scalpel appeared near the door. Someone had opened it while he was sleeping and moved the bodies around. The words "Beret See Hope" are scrawled in English on the wall in marker. The increasing need to eat was more apparent now than ever. He looked at Phoebe. He secretly loathed her. This became all the more apparent as he took the scalpel and slowly cut into her stomach. He was not at all hesitant now. The scene is the most disturbing because, try not to puke here, the angle never changes. His expression is always angry, with cartoon stylized eyebrows. For an entire 60 seconds, he slices her open, eats her lungs and intestines, peels and eats her skin, then moves on to the face, slicing off the eyebrows and the nose, leaving a shaved skeletal corpse as the camera time lapses. The animation is different here. It's more specific, more layered, and more medical looking. Now, the cancerous sores are visibly on Arnold's face as well. The next day, the scalpel is removed. For the next month or so, he picks on the remains of Phoebe. The next time lapse seemed more messed up because now Arnold seemed to have began to hit puberty. He has nibbled on the ears and fingers of every student except Janet because that's his cousin. The scalpel appears again, this time with the words, "A mortal scorn," written on the wall. Arnold talks to himself frantically. What does that mean? What does that mean? Oh God, what does that mean? I can't figure it out. I've tried so hard. I can't figure it out. He picks up the scalpel and decides who to eat next. Carlos. He never liked him either. As he undresses him and begins to slice into him, the student ID falls out of his pocket. He says, "Carlos Ramon. A mortal scorn. Carlos Ramon." It was an anagram, just as Perret C. Hope was an anagram for Phoebe Therese's name. By now, the episode's almost over, and the screen begins to flicker as Arnold starts to gasp for air. "You knew?" Arnold begins to cry. The animation gets very choppy at this point. 2 different shots are seen, and in one, the school bus collides with the sun. In another, Arnold continues to eat the remaining students in order, based on the anagram instructions. Since it's a time lapse, you only see the bodies and the bones begin piling up. He refuses to eat his cousin Janet before ultimately slicing his neck with the scalpel and killing himself. The cancerous sores envelop his corpse completely. Another scene was supposed to appear, but it was cut. The final shot before it ends is the words, "You're gonna go bonkers" in 1988. That phrase, to my knowledge, means nothing. The retrograde film begins to deteriorate before the Russian words appear. This directly translates to, "Whatever happened to Janet?" There's nothing else. The ship entered a black hole. Oh God, I hate saying those 2 words together. And there are no credits. And Arnold profusely screams for 3 minutes that he couldn't breathe as the burning noise envelops the back layer track. It goes on for a full 3 minutes. I tried figuring out what happened to Janet, but the only real clue is, I suppose, in the animation itself. I tried finding some information about the origins online, which I somewhat succeeded in doing. I only found out about it through articles about it on the deep web, and a very old post on 4chan with 2 replies which expressed skepticism due to a lack of evidence. I didn't want to upload footage of the tape onto YouTube, Vimeo, or even Dailymotion because the gore and disturbing imagery was obviously going to get me flagged or banned on any of those websites. So, great. Sergey stopped messaging me everywhere. I had him as a friend. I put the tape up on eBay before being hit with $600,000 fine from PBS. I got sent a very threatening email that told me my life as a professional contractor and plumber was going to end, like they threatened to have that career of mine ended if I released that tape to the public. They insisted it was a prank regarding some employees working on the Magic School Bus having fun, but I knew the backstories, the voice actors' sorrow, the Russian text, the attention to detail, and the fucking matching details regarding the backstories in the actual tape was all too much evidence to believe this. I mean, just who the fuck would create something as terrifying, as scarring as this? I told them that I destroyed the tape to cease any harassing phone calls and letters that were affectionately addressed to Super Fuckface Mario. As evidently my plumbing profession had simply ruffled the feathers of some of the higher-ups, as you can understand. But they weren't clear what would happen if I continued with my story, besides that they would subtly ruin my life. Layer by layer by layer, like a fucking cake. I still have the tape, though. It's with my old college stuff. It'll sit there for days. Days will become weeks, months, and years, decades, just eons and eons and eons. They'll have to pry it from my cold, dead fucking hands when they're finished with me. But there is only one question that remains on my mind so much ever since this whole ordeal. That SpongeBob episode was horrible, but I can't live this one down. But what happened to Sergey? I guess only time will tell. The mind is not something that can just be tampered with by a single image or a single phrase that makes us question our very existence on this planet as we know it. No, anyone who watches this, please know that nothing like this can be seen and then just believed. You must experience it. It's an experience to comprehend in the minds of those who wallow in their own pity and self-worth at such a terrible creation. It's dark, like a light at the flick of your fingers. It is like the psychosis of the very mind of the human being unfurling until it is nothing more than a single piece of shrapnel left on the ground after it has crumbled itself away into pieces that will be forgotten for years, for eons to come. Nothing like this have I ever experienced can even be close to being as dark as one story that completely frazzled the mind of someone close to me. And possibly you. Stories like this cannot be made up in some sort of weird fairy tale. No, they must be experienced by the eye, by the heart, by the soul, by the passion of every single human being on the planet. As the planets rotate around the Earth, around every year, more conspiracies open, just waiting to be answered, especially with one question. Who are we? What will we create? And what will we become as our minds crumble away into the empty void of nothingness as we forget what our purpose is? Wow, that was dark. Alright, so thank you guys so much for listening and watching this. I hope that I didn't scare you too much, but the next video I do will be on my Phase 3 main channel. I'll see you guys there, and sweet dreams.